Your son cannot marry a Muslim. Your son cannot marry a Christian. That is a taboo. But can marry Sakawa?
Anya pani is what Katabo Bihangoma. Bihama Gilmaner, Dartaner, Karamaner, Mojizambala. Papto Papto Jomo, Bakagura, the Bian to Haluna.
I don't think we have achieved yet. I think we are still undertaking the journey.
It's nice to be important, but it's more important to be nice.
Thank you so much for hooking on to my Northern Achiever on Sagani TV. It is another Friday and it's always a delight to welcome you to the show. My name is Abdul-Jalil Naabeli. I am a son of Musa Kumo. And today I have another important guest in my midst, like always. But before I do introduce my guest, I'm going for a very quick commercial break. I am back shortly after and we start the program. Don't go away, stick and stay. We're back shortly.
I am Alhaji Mohammed Mumuni, otherwise called Lawyer Mumuni. I watch Northern Achiever always, and I feel very greatly inspired. And I thank Sagani Television for airing that program.
My name is Hadia Aishitu Seidu, MC Savulhu Municipal. Keep watching my Northern Achiever.
Thank you so much for staying and hooking on with my Northern Achiever, and welcome back from the commercial break. Right, so today I have another important guest, like I said before, and my guest today is someone who is not new to all of us, especially those from the Dagbon enclave of the northern part of the country. My guest today is the president of Dagbon Forum, and his name is Dr. Suleiman Abdullahi, popularly known as Dr. Mubson. Doc, you are welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Doc, for accepting to host us in your house. It was a very quick notice, and you've been able to make out time for us, and so we are grateful and we thank you so much for coming. And I want to start with this. I usually ask this question, especially when I have a guest with a nickname. Yeah. How did you come by the name Mubson?
Oh, the nickname came when I was in the secondary school, in Bokut Secondary School.
Okay.
At that time, we used to have stories about we read books, okay, different books, and in some of the books we came across all sorts of names.
Okay.
And I combined two names, Mob and then Sin.
Okay.
It was something to do with, I think it was something that in the US there was a time when they used to do what they call the mobbing.
Okay.
Which was something to do with, I don't know whether when you come the freshers, the way they were brought into line.
Okay.
To be initiated into
okay,
school or whatever it was. So yes, I guess I like the word mob. I just said Mubson. I wrote it. So it's only Mubson, M-U-B. It was rather M-U-B-S-O-N rather than M-O-B.
Okay.
S-O-N. That's how it came about, the secondary school.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
All right. So now we know where Mubson, came from. And so I want you to tell me what you can remember. But before then, I want you to give me a brief background of yourself as Dr. Mubson.
Okay. Where I was born, well, I was actually born in Sandargu.
Okay.
One of several children of, my dad was the chief of Sandargu at the time. So and my dad had more than one wife. So I always say that I had one father, that's the chief of Savlugu, Yona Abdullahi. We became subsequently, went to Savlugu as Yona Abdullahi, the second.
So meaning your father was Yanabia.
Oh yeah. My father was Yanabia in a very long kind of way, because my grandfather was the son of Naamahmi.
Okay.
And Naamahmi was the eldest son of the Yana.
Okay.
So actually my father was one of the people who contested the Yendi scheme at the time. Naamahmi.
Okay.
So
that's Naamahmi Kama.
No, recently
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The recent
father.
Her father,
okay.
Yes.
Former. Okay.
Yes. So, but actually, my dad was chief of Banville.
Okay.
For 13 years, then Sandargu for 9, and then Savlugu for 20.
Okay.
So I grew up in Savlugu, but I was born in Sandargu.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow.
One of many children. So I can't tell you my mother was. Well, of course, one of my mothers, my one who delivered me was Abibata.
Okay.
But I had
So
several
many
other
mothers.
mothers, over maybe 15, 16 mothers. So they are all my mothers.
Okay. Typically of
And my brothers, I have other brothers
royal.
too.
You see,
Yes.
it is now that I'm beginning to understand why Dagbon is so dear to your heart.
Yes.
Yes, I never really knew you were a royal. Wow.
No.
Wow.
No, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So let me ask you, you know, how you grew up. Tell me about your childhood, all about it, anything you can remember about your childhood.
Yes, I think the first thing I remember would be when we went to Savlugu. I was very young then. So the early things I remember at the primary school, when we were in primary school. Incidentally, when I was in primary school, I think I was in primary school with people like Lawyer Mumuni.
Okay.
Yes, we are contemporaries and it's standard now.
Okay.
Yes, we grew up together. We used to
Wow.
do all sorts of things together. So what I remember is the primary school, going to primary school, and they didn't understand that our primary education was, my handwriting was very bad.
Okay.
So I used to, that time, instead of using the eraser, I used to use my finger.
Yeah.
So there would be a hole on the page.
Yes,
And
yes.
that would require some caning.
Yeah, sure.
Or not caning, that's
Yeah,
caning, but it would just
some
tell you
corporal
off.
punishment or
Yes, and the other thing I remember about my primary school was my headmasters.
okay.
I don't know, I think that, in a sense, did influence who I later became, because one of them was Mr. Sumani
Okay.
Al Hassan.
Okay.
He was actually the son of the Sablugu Wulana, the son of the Sablugu Wulana at the time.
Okay.
And he was a very good teacher and very gentle, very really inspiring. But the other thing was very strict.
Okay.
And so you had the caring side of it, but also the
Very
strict side.
strict, disciplinarian.
Yes.
Okay.
And so it was really, and then I had another one who was my brother actually. One of my brothers was Mr. Alassane.
Okay.
They call Alassane Jangbuni,
Okay.
the tiger. You know, he was very strict, but
Wow.
very, very good at what they did.
Yeah.
So those were really good days. But the other thing that stands out was the school sports days.
Okay.
When they would hang bread on strings.
And then you do eating
Then they'll tie
competition.
your hands. And then you run to bread and try
I
to eat
see.
it with the wind blowing the bread around like this kind of wind. Yes.
Yeah.
That was quite interesting.
Okay. All right. So it means therefore that you would call yourself someone from Savlugu.
Yes.
Any other place.
I would call myself someone from Savlugu because that's where I grew up.
Okay. So in fact, I was with Lawyer Mumuni the other time.
Yes.
And he was making a lot of noise about how Kumbungu is better than Savlugu. I want you to tell him. Tell Lawyer.
The lawyer, I don't know, lawyer and I, he knows that Savlugu has some strong points. That's where he was, his formative years were in Savlugu. That's where he became the person he is today.
Okay.
And it is a tribute to Savlugu's, the qualities of that town.
Okay.
That
Okay.
he became a lawyer. If you had grown up in Kumbungu, you never know, he may have been a very good farmer.
So lawyer, Doc is telling you that you are only a lawyer today because Savlugu groomed you.
Yes.
So Kumbungu cannot be a match to Savlugu. Well, the debate can keep going. My own friend, Jali Palua, Doc is telling all of you that you are no match to them when it comes to the Savlugu Kumbungu banter. Right. So now, Doc, let's move on to asking about how you relate with your parents and siblings growing up, especially coming from a polygamous family, such a huge family. How did you relate with your brothers, sisters, and parents?
I think that sometimes the way we relate to our parents is determined by the kind of environment your parents create in the household. So, for example, as I said, I have a mother who actually delivered me, but the others I refer to as my mothers.
Okay.
The first principle was this whole thing about respect for your elders and your big brothers, your big sisters, your parents, and your uncles and everybody else around you. So that was what then formed the way you began to look at other people. So, for example, of all our brothers, we never said you never told anybody who your mother was. You just said you were
From
so-and-so's father.
Yeah.
But you were all brothers.
Okay.
And it was always, we always found it offensive to attribute to one mother and say that's your mother. So what that means is that that was the first thing that brings us the bond between us, a very strong bond between us as we grew up.
Okay.
And so that's one. The other thing is that we were also involved in a lot of sports.
Okay.
We used to have football. We used to play football, like I said, with
together as a family, as
no,
brothers.
yes. In fact, we used to have a football team, and most of the players were from our house.
Yeah, because
and then Sanana's that time Sanana the Savona was then the clerk of council.
Okay.
So he's how to produce a few footballers.
Okay.
I don't remember entirely whether Sanana did play football. He was a goalkeeper or he did play. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Or he was a spectator.
Okay. Okay. Yes, Sanana. Tadi dah aku baru. Bicara boleh yes Sanana. Dok level dah aku baru.
Orang the more you got a good goal.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I'm sure with time we are going to get to. We'll go to Yep Sanana and then we'll take his side of the story so that at least we'll know what he was doing.
All right.
Okay. All right.
So yeah, so we grew up there. Therefore, we were very close. Actually, at the time when I was growing up in Sablugo, I was looking back on it. Like I mentioned Loya Mumune,
Yeah.
and Sadana. I didn't mention my brothers.
Okay.
Because we didn't have those sort of boundaries.
Yeah.
We were all
One.
from Sablugo,
Okay.
Nail Fong. We used to meet in one place, and we all went to Banyele or the Sablugo Primary School or the middle school.
Yes.
So that's how. So it was really, we did things together quite a lot.
Okay.
You know, and that carried us all the way through even to secondary school, and some of us even to university.
What? Okay. It's a community as well. Yellow kunya. Asia issue of suggest MC for Savulugu Municipal Assembly. It's a you know to you have dog long council Savulugu. So you can jubilate and celebrate your victory because today you are flooring.
Ama chalepa is bishao.
Okay.
Mayil polo tab kumbo numbira.
Oh, dog lo sara.
No, diga mali mayil polo diga lengbon ni sablu di sa kumbo.
Okay.
Katigina.
Okay.
So
Okay.
Inkuto di
Okay. Okay, so Doc, let's move on to ask about how you know the kind of upbringing you got. You know, we were talking about how you related with your brothers, but upon this relationship with the family, what kind of upbringing did you get from your parents and senior or elder brothers?
I think that when you are from a big family, one thing you have to recognize is that some are teachers, some are our sisters, some were also teachers or traders, and then some of them were all sorts of professions. So we used to have our role models within the family.
Okay.
So you watched at how your brothers were doing, and that showed you what to do. For example, they went to school, they never left school until they finished. And wherever they went, they continued. Those who became teachers. Some continued. When we were growing up, very few of our brothers, at that time, not many people were actually going to university.
Okay.
So once they started going to university, our aim towards university. Yes, our parents were very supportive.
Okay.
Our mothers and our father was very supportive in the way they could.
Okay.
Because even though you grew up in a chief's house, it didn't mean that they had money.
Okay.
Yeah. But at that time, things were not
as it is
today. Because most of the time, at that time, the chiefs did not entirely, they didn't sell land. So it was more farming or what they got from other people. So I remember we used to be visiting people in Tamale, some of the family members who had money or who were well-to-do. You would visit them and you got help.
Okay.
But our parents did everything they could to support us.
Okay.
Our mothers made sure we had food to eat before we went to school.
Okay.
Our sisters, brothers who were working were very supportive, advising us to go to school and all that. So that was really, really, it was very inspiring to know that there was somebody else you could look up to move on in your profession or in the way that you wanted to like go to school and continue going to school.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So, in fact, but how has that upbringing naturally affected you, either positively or negatively?
Yes.
As a human being?
Okay. For me, one of the ways that my upbringing has affected me in the sense that it's given me a very high sense of respect for women. Yeah. Because our mothers didn't have that much, but I remember even though our father was helpful, it was some of them mostly our mothers who sold petty trading and so on that helped to send us to school. And I'll touch on this later on in our conversation.
Okay.
In that influenced me a lot. when I started working professionally, and even the work I've done in the NGO field, I've done a lot of work involving women, because I know how tough things were for the women, and how it was to be able to raise funds and support their children to go to school, and look after the entire family. It wasn't just one child. So that was really good for me. But the other thing that I also learned was, we growing up in a chief's house, in a village, that is the highest point of level you can reach. But the humility that our father showed us, and also the objectivity, and also
issues.
Even though at that time I wouldn't say the divisions in Dagbon weren't there, but he didn't. We were brought up not to see division.
Yeah.
I mean, people have told me your dad was a diplomat of Dagbon. They used to call him, because he didn't encourage division. No. So I grew up learning how to be completely objective and not take sides, in whatever I do. And that is why you probably said at the beginning you didn't know I was from a cheese background. No, because when that is not what takes the. I think the thing that takes the lead is the person you are, rather than
where you come from.
Wow.
Wow. The person you are rather than where you come from is what matters more. I think we should be learning from this as you. But then, which schools did you attend from childhood up until today?
Okay, I attended the Sablugu Primary School.
Okay.
And then, and then from there I went to Sablugu Middle School, Gwanyele. Okay. And from Gwanyele I went to Boku Secondary School.
Okay.
For, at that time it was 5 years. So when I finished Boku Secondary School, I then went to Tamale Secondary School for my 6th form.
Why didn't you go to Ghana School instead?
Ghana School, yes. At that time, and even now, Tamale School was the place to go.
No. Because you see, when I was at the junior high school and they said we should choose schools, I was looking at Tamale Secondary School, Ghana. See, how can I be going to Tamale when there is Ghana?
Yes.
So, the name alone will tell you that Ghana School is just the school to go.
Yes, but unfortunately, you were misled. I think Tamale School was the place to go at that time.
Well, we can keep the debate going.
Yes.
It can go on and on.
Yes.
So, because the banter would never stop.
No.
All right, then. So from
Tabasco, I did my 6th form. Then I went to University of Science and Technology to do my first degree in land economy.
Okay.
That was a 4-year program. And when I did that, I then I went on a student exchange program to Sweden for 7 months before I did my national service.
Okay.
It was an exchange, economics and business student thing. You were attached to I was attached to a bank there.
Okay.
Then when I came, I did my national service with Bank for Housing and Construction. And then I went to Aberdeen University on the Commonwealth Scholarship to do my master's.
Okay.
So when I finished my master's in Aberdeen, I got another scholarship to go and do my PhD at Cambridge University in the UK.
Okay.
And then after that, I did a 1-year postdoctoral degree in Oxford University.
Wow.
Yeah, which was more research-based. Yes. So that's the education I had.
In fact, that brings me to this question. I'm told you are a sojourner. You've traveled all around the world. How many countries have you traveled to?
Oh, I've been to a lot of countries in Africa itself.
Yeah.
Many countries in East and Southern Africa.
Okay.
I've been to Mozambique, South Africa, Rwanda, Burundi, Tanzania.
And all of these travels, what do you go to do? Is it for education?
Okay, no. With the African trips, it's mostly been, I work with NGOs.
Okay.
And the NGO work has involved me going to visit projects.
Okay.
And when I'm visiting the projects, it's more about seeing how the projects are doing.
Okay.
And then when I was also working in the UK with a British NGO that was funding projects called Comic Relief.
Okay.
And they were funding projects across Africa. So I visited projects to see how the projects were doing.
Okay.
So that, but in Europe too, I've been to European countries for similar reasons.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So before I go for this quick commercial break, can you just outline in a few minutes, maybe 2 minutes, how your working life has been, what jobs you have taken, just in brief, so that maybe we can talk about some of them later after the break. You know, I've been to this job, then I left for this, I left for that. How many can?
I think that I'll put it in segments.
Okay.
When I did my national service, I was working with a bank.
Okay.
After the bank,
Where did you do your national service?
With Bank for Housing and Construction.
Okay.
At that time, it was called Bank for Housing. It doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, sure.
So I did my service there, and they retained me.
Okay.
And I worked there till 79.
Okay.
And then when I left for my studies abroad, I came back. I came back to Ghana to set up Action Aid.
Wow.
Yeah, I was their first member of staff in Ghana.
Wow.
I brought Action Aid to Ghana. And then so I set it up in Boku. From Action Aid, I then went back, worked with a British NGO in the UK. Okay. Then I came back with another NGO called Action on Disability and Development. It's called ADD. They were in Tamale here. Okay. Their head office was in Tamale, the national office. Then from there, I went back to the UK to work with Comic Relief, as I said. Yeah. But Comic Relief was funding projects in different countries, including Ghana. Okay. And through that, I was actually, I helped in the process of getting groups like Basic Needs. They work with mental health. It's a British NGO, but they are in Ghana. I also was instrumental in helping there was another Ghanaian chap who was then in the UK, Wahab Montia. Okay. We worked together and basically this came to Ghana. Okay. Then I was also, whilst I was in Cambridge, I used to work with a woman called Ann Cotton. Okay. She was the founder of Comfort. Okay. So I also brought Comfort to Ghana.
Really?
Yes, yes.
Wow.
So when Comfort came to Ghana, in fact, they were working with an NGO I set up called RAINS. Okay. Mandela Center. Yes. So it used to be called RAINS Comfort. Okay. Until Comfort became independent and established.
Fully fledged, yeah.
Exactly. So from working, doing that, I then went back to the UK and I worked with a British NGO called Gaia Foundation. Wow. They work on environment and related biodiversity, climate change issues. And then after that, I worked with Stephen Lewis Foundation of Canada. Stephen Lewis Foundation of Canada, their focus is HIV/AIDS. Yeah. And I was one of their Africa field representatives. So I went to visit projects, like I was saying, Tanzania, Kenya, East Africa, and Southern Africa, to see how the projects were doing and understand how best to help people affected by or living with HIV/AIDS.
Wow.
Yes.
What a way to have a guest on My Northern Achiever. And we couldn't have chosen a better guest for this week. So if you have an NGO that is just coming up, I think these are people you can tap a lot of experience from. You know, you can always contact people like this to help you also grow your own NGO and other, related works. And Dr. Mubson, I know, is always going to be available to, support in any way he can. On this note, we are going to go for a very quick commercial break. I'm going to come back shortly after that break. Don't even move the muzzle, because if you do, you are going to lose a lot. We'll be back shortly after this break.
Ngile Abdul-Rahman Muhammad Sane, Buburma Manshane, and I'm a Metro Director of Education. Mpansu so come ne olire my Northern Achiever. So kwanza hakomo ma de nyala ben shaw den te hankala ka sonde te nachimma en pasara ma. Donc quand so come jandi. Lihi ya Sagani my Northern Achiever de nyala ben shaw den te hankala.
Thank you so much for staying on with My Northern Achiever on Sagani TV with me, Abdul-Jalil Naabeli. I am a son of Musa Kumo. You are welcome back from the break, and my guest remains Dr. Suleimana Abdullahi, popularly known as Dr. Mubson, the president of Dagbon Foro. And today, as you can see me, I'm looking very traditional and in a very, awesome smock. The smock is woven by my own Jina brother Mutalib. Abdul Mutalib is in my house, and my Jina brother, and you can contact me or my producers, and we can get you the same as it is, and you will also look as good as I do. Now, before we went for the commercial break, we were talking about the work experience of Doc, and Charlie, it's just so tall a list that we cannot delve into all of it, but we'll try to talk about some of them. Need I remind you that you can also sponsor or advertise on our program by calling any of the numbers that are rolling on our screens. Now, Doc, I want us to move straight into what has worked for you in life, because you are somebody I revere a lot because of what you have achieved for yourself and now for Dagbon. Now, what has worked for you? What has been your life principles generally?
I think the first thing I would say is that you should do what you really like doing. And it may sound very general, but what it is I've told you everywhere I've worked in school and all that, and all along, when I finished with Bank for Housing and I went to study, I realized that I really liked to do things to change conditions of people, to make things easier for everybody. Okay. My goal wasn't to make money. Okay. So for that reason, everything I've done in the NGO sector, I've enjoyed doing. So I have not regretted anything that I've spent my life doing things to change other people's lives. That's the first thing. Because otherwise I will be looking back and say, I could have done this, I could have made money, I could have done, but with all the NGOs I have brought to Ghana and helped to set them up, there were all opportunities that other people might use to make money, you know, or I would be driven by the need to make myself happy. But for me, it was more about how to make sure those organizations were set up and strived. That's the first thing. The other thing the other principle that I think is very important is that I really like changing conditions in northern Ghana. Okay. I used to call myself a die-hard northern Ghanaianist. It doesn't mean I'm not interested in the whole of the country. Yeah. But because of our upbringing and our exposure, you know that the north has a lot to catch up with the rest of the south. Yeah. Because many places of the south, they had opportunities since independence, and the conditions were different. Like the forest zone, they have a lot more, two rainfalls a year. Okay. They have forest products throughout the year, and then some of the industries were set up there. So I'm not saying it like a criticism. Yep. Those were the conditions, and we took advantage as a country. But in the north, you know, one rainy season, prolonged dry season, most people are small-scale farmers. There isn't a lot to do during the dry season. Okay. So it seems to me that because of the conditions that I was raised in, is that I've always wanted to see a change of northern Ghana. Okay. So in fact, when Action Aid came to Ghana, the head office, the national office, was in Boku. Wow. Oh yes, Boku was the first national office of Action Aid, not Accra. I remember at the time they were telling me social welfare, oh, you know, Accra, at the time Boku, there's nothing there. I said, no, but we want to set it up there because that's where the program is starting. So we spent the first 2 years of Action Aid was in Boku. Okay. Then they moved to Zebila when it became a district capital. Okay. And then they opened an office in Accra. By that time, I had left. Wow. Yes.
Excellent, life principles. It is not always about money. It's about how you are going to leave a mark, an indelible mark on, whatever it is that you touch, you put your hands on. And I think that is a great principle, and I'm learning a lot from you, Doc. I almost skip a very important question. Are you married?
Yes, I am married with, I have 3 daughters. Wow. In the UK. Wow. Yes. Yes. They are grown up. They are all grown up. They all work in the UK.
And they are all married?
One of them.
Okay. Any one of them that matches my crew, any of them, so that
let me see.
For me, I'm married.
You are married, okay, yes. So you are out.
Yes.
Oh yes, I can, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, let me see. So, you are interested. Okay.
So this is an invitation to treat.
Yeah, all right. Okay.
Okay, yes. So let's now come to talking about Dagbon Forum. In fact, Dagbon Forum has now become a household name throughout the country, and anyone who cares to listen or to know. Are you the brain behind Dagbon Forum?
I'm not actually. We are many of us.
Okay.
That we have Professor Amin, Sintaro.
Professor Amin, yes.
Yes, Sintaro, Commander Yakubu, Sabokudi, who is in Accra, Lawyer Fatau,
I have to send affiliations to Prof. Amin. Prof, I greet you wherever you are, Prof. I know you are monitoring. I greet you, Prof. Yeah.
Yes. Then also we have Fati, daughter of the Kumbuna. So it's a good thing I didn't say negative things about Kumbungu. But the Kumbuna's daughter is one of us, the founders of the Dagbon Forum. And with a lot of other young people, Chenti, Mbangba and all that. Mbangba is that radio.
Okay. So how did Dagbon Forum come about? How did it come about?
I think that many Dagbombers were very concerned about the over almost 40 years, 50 years of tension.
Yeah.
And we felt that we needed to come together to see how we could work to change things in Dagbon.
Okay.
And also to work with other groups that were already existed, working to bring about the governments, subsequent different governments had been working to bring about peace in Dagbon. And so when we were formed, our driving force was unity, peace and development in Dagbon. And we also felt that you cannot have anything like development if we didn't have peace.
Wow.
That was the driving force. So that is why when we joined the road to peace, we were totally committed, because otherwise, if that didn't happen, there will be no point in existing as a group. Yeah. So we took the peace process with both hands, and we went 100 and 200% fully committed
to the process.
Because in our opinion, without peace, it's a waste of time. Yeah. So that's been where we have got to.
So how is the organizational structure of Dagbon Forum?
Okay, Dagbon Forum, you know, typically, naturally, the only way we could link up with each other was using the social medium of WhatsApp and Telegram.
Okay.
Initially, the whole idea, the thing began to form using social media.
Yeah.
But then we had a proper constitution drawn up.
Okay.
And according to the constitution, we have a national executive.
Okay.
Then you have a national council.
Okay.
And then you have district chapters.
Okay.
And the district chapters, right now we have chapters in also Kumbungu, Sablugu, Tambali, Yendi, Gushegu and all that.
Okay.
Now, those chapters, the presidents form part of the national council.
Okay.
So you have the national executive, which is us, but when we meet as a national council, then you have the other chapter presidents coming in.
Okay.
Then we have an annual general meeting.
Okay.
We should meet every year. So the first phase of the Dagbon Forum has been that some of the district chapters have been very active.
Okay.
And the national chapter has obviously been very dynamic.
Okay.
But moving on, we now want to make sure that on the ground, that in all the districts, we have people becoming active.
Okay.
Whether you don't have to be educated or go to school to be a member of DF and be active. So we want to make sure that the district chapters become very well established at the district level on the ground.
Okay.
And also the international chapter, they have all sorts of ideas to help the development of Dagbon. And then the national executive would then coordinate. Then we also have ideas about having something like a Dagbon Advisory Council.
Okay.
That's going to be like almost like what they call a think tank. That would be advisory to help us, help the Biwa Palace, the traditional council, so that we can contribute to the development of Dagbon and Ghana as a whole.
Wow. But which year did you form?
Okay, Dagbon Forum, the whole idea started probably in the early 2017.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so it's not a very.
So it's just a young organization.
Very young organization. Yeah, but with very
impact has been.
Yeah. Yes. I think the impact has been that way because the people who have been involved have been 100% committed.
Okay.
And been very objective, not taking sides.
Yeah.
So and therefore that builds trust.
Okay. So how do one become a member of DF?
To become a member of DF, as I said, we have the different chapters.
Okay.
But we will be launching a membership campaign very soon, Drive.
Okay.
With registration forms and people can apply and join.
Okay.
And then you can be active in your district.
Okay.
Or you can be active at the national level. and so on. So yeah, we are in the process of doing that.
Wow.
We have a constitution.
Yeah. In fact, so you know that My Northern Achiever is just an informative program and a motivational one at that. And so Dagbon, everyone should get prepared. Dagbon Forum will soon come up with forms for applications for membership into the chapter. And so watch out for Dagbon Forum and its membership coming up shortly. Now, like I said before, you've just been 2 years or so, less than 2 years maybe, and already the impact has been great. What achievements have you chalked thus far as a an organization?
I think the first achievement I would put is that we have been able to build a critical mass of Dagbamba,
okay,
united and committed to promoting Dagbon, peace in Dagbon and development of Dagbon.
Okay.
We have people from all sides of the previous Abudu and Dani divide, working together without those labels being important in the activities of the Dagbon Forum, but also obtaining the trust of our leaders on all sides of Dagbon,
okay,
including, fortunately, our new Yana.
Yes. And that brings me to my next question. Fortunately for us, like you said, we now have a Yana Abukari Muhammad II, a wise, humble, nice old man. And what next after fighting to get the roadmap for peace implemented, though still in the process, because I'm sure there are certain other few things that needs to be, patched. So what next after finding the Yana or after installing a new Yana?
I think the first thing is that the roadmap is a very long one.
Yeah.
We have taken quite a big chunk of the roadmap. And in my view, the next steps would be, the first and foremost is to consolidate the peace.
Okay.
That means rallying 100% behind the Yana and his governance structure, the entire structure of chiefs that come under him, and how we rally right behind and support them in any way we can, with information, with whatever we feel would be helpful to the Yana in his government.
Yes, in fact, if I may,
sure.
There's a member on DF, the Indi chapter, Saifu Abdul-Latif.
Oh yes.
He wanted to know, if there is a plan to assist in restructuring protocol at the Biwa Palace to meet, modern standards. I think this is getting it. That's why I've chipped in this question.
Sure.
So that, is there any plan to do so? Are you already in talks with the Biwa Palace?
Actually, one of the things that we have to also learn is that Western education always makes those of us who have been to Western schools, had Western education, to think we always have the answers. Or we see problems where there are none. Or, by that I mean, at the Yendi Palace, something happened.
Yes.
With the TV3 journalists.
And
we came in.
Yeah.
Now, moving forward, the first thing we should do is visit the Yana, find out what he sees as his needs. And then when we do that, we can better see how we can get the help for him. And the traditional council is there as well. I mean, I'm not saying it's not important. We go to do that.
Sure.
But with the protocol at the Yana's Palace is complex. You have the traditional chiefs. They have their protocol. So if people follow the protocol, when you go to Yendi, who do you see to go and see the Yana? So that you see, is it Mbadru, Kohana, Zohana? Who do you see? If we can fine tune, because if you go to the Ashantihini's Palace, there are people you see. And it's not the people, because Western education means protocol always means somebody wearing a tie or somebody in a smoke coming and taking it. No. What's the traditional protocol? Then we try and see how we strengthen it and make it more amenable or responsive to the modern way of things.
Yeah. So I think what Doc is just trying to say is there should be laid down procedures on how to get in touch with the Yana, so that anybody just cannot go to any other person to say that I want to see the Yana, and then the whole thing looks so haphazard and so disorganized. I think it is not going to help any.
But you see, but the other thing I wanted to say is that the Yana, the way he is, he's a very easy-going person. Humble. Before he became Yana, I went to see him in Sabluku. And I remember sitting on his by him. He said, "I come and we'll take a picture with him." So some people are like that. Like growing up with my own dad, he didn't like barriers between him and people.
Yes.
So whilst we are looking for the protocols, we also have to let people be natural in the way they want to relate to people, because the times are changing.
Okay. So before I take my second break, what should the government do going forward now that we have been able to install a new Yana?
I think I would say that for the government moving forward, we have to regain our sense of unity and identity as a group of people who have a common history, a common ancestry, but also that we also live in an area that has all sorts of challenges imposed in part by nature. As I said, the prolonged dry season and so on, but also a region that has unfortunately, and a group of people that have unfortunately been subjected to almost half 50 years of tension. So moving forward, we want to see how can we rebuild our unity, unite as a people, and put our heads together to see how we can tackle the challenges facing us to improve, to tackle poverty, the lack of income, food insecurity, and all that. So those would be the things that I think moving forward, the government as a whole should be looking at doing or achieving.
Okay, so this brings us to another short commercial break. And as we are still on my Northern Achiever on Sagani TV with me, Abdul-Jalil Naabeli, son of Musa Kumo. I'll go for my next quick commercial break, and when I am back, we conclude on this session with Dr. Suleiman Abdullahi, Dr. Mubson as he's popularly called. Do stick and stay. We are back shortly after this commercial break.
I am Mohammed Yakubu Mustafa, headmaster Bimbla Senior High School. Abdul-Jalil Naabeli was one of the students we taught in the last decade. He is an excellent communicator. As a result, I don't always miss his show, My Northern Achiever on Sagani TV. I urge each and every one of you to always watch it on Friday at 8:30 p.m. and you will never regret you do.
We are welcome back from the commercial break on my Northern Achiever on Sagani TV with me, Abdul-Jalil Naabeli, son of Musa Kubo, and my guest today remains Alhaji Suleiman Abdullahi, popularly known as Dr. Mubson. In fact, he's a doctor, a PhD holder, and you know it's always good to always add it because it's not an easy thing to get a PhD. All right, so Doc, for Katnat uti Shiloma. Yetu ashele nda ndo di to nda fama dribla ndansi kebyago pasaro so imuru zuwera ko onye kalisco o chanla kalisco kura cha to executive producer nda be bas sabob ka da chen tabar then around Sampolo ka paso join lurma ka pabia ka wonzuera won yule ne kambani adabotuni Pama Bobima Jesus. Can not you pala could be a lure and Capo so you in the command the tune Pama Jimmy. So after some time, Kunyaka Mala the tune Pama de Gia, can we see Kazan Oko Zanti, the La Pama. Can the one that taps the Catina? Come on, Hal Shelneton Pabi to Zoom to no man. Lalanda Niele is Ama, Kadi Palala. Bonchaka pichang be sasu ko kamel na zan titene na chimbe be mai yangoma zampa lore ni lala pa unma pa ba mai be ni kura jilma tibu lore pu
Tunda je be arajin lord ne yi tone ka nyankuru kan ke lord man na kaso yen yela ka na yi siko je kaso yen yela sha yi sikar lanje dibin yela gula don o kweba nde po yela ne pende to sa ne yere kama ninkurlem jirma den to ko zo na kar yela de a bele a ko zo tampo na so kam suwa fu komsi sama da zo so ke lord na kakema be pa kena ka kwabia be so kara gba so be ko kena gba ka kunye kama de wumome den wo shema nyin ni to ku isaba ko jine deso mani en pense na be ne zaba isam nyama kama ai ke lori be ajila ben shekolo kaso kara ha de da je waya champion da shaka be foli kane ko kana ai me garanto ne nte dakati katiranda ma actually yero gwa ni chache polo tamale nte da ben shawo kaso kajia ngo kaso katiro mbapra kabati dakana anya de na bieni de ben naza ama lan kwang pa ne kwang ba ma kala je ma karna bien
okay so nta zwira lor lan yi na yambala ta kwam ma umbo ka te mai fura du tune kama so kam za sa pense la bia ngo ma nta de nyala de mai bia ko kam. But then doc, let's move on to this particular question. It's another question on the Dagbon Forum chapter of Yendi. How can DF develop, you know, the tourist potentials of Dagbon? What are you thinking about? Something like this? And if you are, what is in the offing for us?
Yes, I think generally DF we have a strategic plan. Okay. We have a plan that covers 4 areas. Okay. Peace and security in Dagbon. The second one is development. The third one is cultural renaissance. Okay. And then the fourth one is awareness raising, advocacy, and influencing policy at all sorts of levels. Okay. So under the development strategic objective, one of the areas we've thought about is how to develop the tourism potential of Dagbon. Because there are also places, the Salaga, the slave trade routes, Yanda Bari, and all sorts of other tourist other attractions that we hope can be developed. Even going to communities to live with people and see how people live in the communities, in our villages, is something that has a huge potential. Okay. Some of our sacred sites, we have the various sacred sites that are still there, like the Katarga. Okay. There's a sacred site there that people, every year they go to perform the sacrifice. People want to see how this is done. So there are all sorts of the huge potential for the development of tourism in Dagbon, and that needs to be developed. And I think it will probably require the tour companies or individuals to just take it up. Yes.
Wow. So now let me ask you this question: is Dagbon preserving? You know, are we preserving our norms, values, and cultural, you know, practices as a people?
I think at different levels, we have tried to do that. For example, if you take the life cycle of a human being, the birth, we have reached the ceremony, naming ceremony, outdooring ceremony. When someone dies, we have ceremonies that we do. We have the Damba, the various festivals, and so on. So I think we are doing our best to preserve it. But because our culture is so intricately linked with us as a people, when our relationship with each other is bad, it affects everything. So for example, over the last few years, when there's a Damba festival, you know the problems we had. Where do you go and dance Damba? Who's Damba? And so on. Yeah. But now that we have peace and unity, it means that we can really build upon and develop what we always used to have. Because I remember when there was Damba in the past, it was something for the whole community. But because of what has happened over the last 40 years, it's not been the best. So our culture defines us as a people. And so when the state of our relationships is bad, it affects the way our culture manifests itself. And so moving forward, I believe that this year, the Fire Festival, we will see more people coming out. the Damba Festival, we will see more of us congregating to Yendi or Savlugu or Kumbung or wherever to dance, because we know that we are now a united people, and very happy to be so.
All right, so I want us to talk about the chieftaincy institution. In the olden days, there used to be like the caliber of the, the weight of the chief of the Dagbon king, like the Yana. And today we have police stations that when there is any trouble in the land, instead of going to the chief's palace, people take it to the police station. Do you think that chieftaincy has outlived its importance?
I don't think chieftaincy has outlived its importance. I think that we have probably not seen, we have suffered because of our 50 years of tension. Because the Ashantihini has a system and everybody respects it. When there's a problem, there are some problems that Ashantihini deals with.
Okay.
There are some problems that the police deal with, and so on.
Okay.
But as increasingly, or let's say decreasingly, people took their cases to court. So even if the chief calls you to come and arbitrate or see how he could help, if the chief wasn't somebody from a section you identified with, you just not even go.
Okay.
You go to the police station. But I think that our chiefs have shown over the years that they can resolve disputes, even including the extreme case of when people have died in a conflict situation. They've been able to try and resolve these differences.
Okay.
And I hope that under the tutelage of the Yana and his hierarchy of chiefs, and with the discipline I'm sure he will impose, we should be able to regain some of that.
Okay.
There are some things that should go to the police, but there are some things that our chiefs can help with in the order of things. Because don't forget, the chieftaincy institution is recognized by law, and there are judicial or semi-judicial responsibilities they have. They can actually implement.
Yes. Now I want us to go a little further into this, or this is something that is usually so dear to my heart because I'm a youth, and I would want to always have an objective overview of this question I'm going to ask. I want you to compare, the youth of today to that of when you were a youth. What comparisons can you make, and what conclusion would you draw therein?
I think that is a very tricky question, because to look at the youth, you have to look at what opportunities did I have that the youth of today do not have. For example, when I was going to school at our time, to secondary school, our local councils, for those from the north, many of us, the councils would pay some of they will give you uniform and give you money. They used to pay whatever needed to be paid for you to go to school, secondary school. That doesn't exist today. The other thing that existed in our time too was that most of us went to school either within our localities or far away. When you were going to those schools, we had accommodation in the school. These days, many students have to hire accommodation, and their parents are already stressed out without resources. And the other thing too is that in our time, many of the students, the whole thing about our social community responsibility for children was very strong. So it wasn't only your parents who would be looking out for you. People in the community used to look out for other children. So I remember many people can say that, well, when I was growing up, this person helped me, even though they are not your relative. Now, today is a very different situation. We don't have the support that you should be getting from schools. When you're going to school, they are no longer there, except now we have free SHS, which will be really helpful. But because towns have grown into cities, the cultural norm of looking after children is decreasing. So, for example, if a child comes and does anything, you can't just shout at them because you don't know the family they come from. And if you discipline them, they may take you to the police station. So, and then also, increasing. In our time, we used to have others we looked up to.
Yeah.
Even though they were not formal mentors, but they were people who made themselves available to advise you. And these days, I don't think a lot of it is there. You hear it on radio. But I remember when we were in Tabasco, people like the late Gushina,
Yeah.
This is Dr. Alassane Energy, they used to call him Energy.
Okay.
The late B.F. Husseini, Alassane Dawuni, Yakubu, a former interior minister, people like that, they used to come around. We ourselves, following what they did when we were in school, they used to come and advise us. When we were in university, we also used to go around I went to teach Boku when I was in university. I went to teach even Ganasco.
Okay.
And it was interesting when I was in university, some of those we taught came to join us.
Wow.
Yeah, when we were in fourth year, they were coming to first year. So that was very important. And that is missing.
But then, Doc, what would be your final words to everyone watching you now?
My final words would be more like advice to the youth of today.
Okay.
I think there are two things I want to suggest to say is that our young people, my advice is that please try and have a focus in your life, which is try and think about getting an education or a skill. Try and have something you can do with your hands rather than being drawn into political and chieftaincy things that would keep you doing things that will not be able to employ you one day. That's the first thing. And then the other thing too is that we should also try and find some life or work in the things that our fathers and mothers do. So if your mother is a trader or your father is a carpenter or a mason or what have you, and you are not going to school, you try and see how you can learn a craft, something that you can actually use to feed yourself one day. That's my advice under the circumstances of the time. But that's what I would emphasize very strongly. And of course, the final thing is really respect for our mothers.
Okay.
Because they really are very working hard to support us, and I think we need to do more to support them.
Wow. So, Doc, before we take final leave of you, who do you want to say shout outs to, maybe in a minute or two?
In a minute, I think I'd like to start by saying, or by greeting the Yana, and to thank you for being there for all of us.
Okay.
I would like to greet my extended family in Savlugu, both the children of Yonabla and Gurgulo family in Savlugu and other places. And my friends, I have a lot of friends in Tamale that I could name. I greet all of them. Also the members of DF, the Dagbon Forum, the executive, we've already mentioned Sintaru, Mbangba, Kadri, and others, Azef Fati. I greet all of them.
This is where time is going to permit us on today's episode of My Northern Achiever. But I cannot take leave of you without saying a very big thank you and hello to Alhaji Rahim Mayweather inside Ashama. I'm sure soon enough we'll be hosting Alhaji on My Northern Achiever, so watch out for Alhaji. And then Mr. Sintaru, the Vice President of Dagbon Forum National Chapter. I would also like to say a big thank you and hello to my auntie Hajimami. I would also like to say thanks to Hajia Aisha Bansi of LK International Ghana Company Limited. She is the General Manager. And also to the General Manager, the CEO, and the MD of Sagani TV and all the workers in Sagani TV. It is through Sagani that we are able to bring this program to you. My all greetings finally would go to Lashes of Kumbungu. You don't joke with My Northern Achiever. And my name, Jalil Palua, also in Kumbungu, Jargo. In the Mawrata by our story, Sherry. Ne Kumbungu never told you fully monitor story. You don't pass when that part of Benziru Kumbu Tesa. They is it about Tesa. Plan to so can let Lara Shinka from over. The guy could make Kana or when Jimson Kaka will cover Mama Shinka for 200 and woman young doing your Labna. And so Kumbu people, I need you to verify this story and let me know about it. So thank you for viewers for monitoring, and because of you we are My Northern Achiever. But for you, the program is nothing. And for my crew, I can't thank you enough because you always make the production successful. And so until I come your way again next week, this has been me, Abdul-Jalil Naabeli. I am the son of Musa Kumo. Bye bye.